All aboard! Or whatever they say at the army. I wouldn't know, I'm anti-war. But I needed a cap because my hair is just not it. Anyways, hi, I'm Spulele, and today this is a topic I've been thinking about for a bit, but I feel like I don't have much to further it, right? So basically in this video, I'm just comparing something I've seen popping up, and I don't know how I feel about it, and I don't really know what nuance I can give to the subject matter. I just know it's there, and I'm just gonna point it out, really. And that is, men are golden retrievers. Women are just annoying. And this came to me recently in a dream. No, not in a dream. It just came to me after watching like a slew of these the puppy interview with BuzzFeed. You know, they're very popular series on there where they have celebrities. I noticed the kind of attitude towards men when they're in those videos versus women in those videos, and versus just women displaying their emotions in general. We're going to look at two case studies, mainly Ariana Grande and Rachel Zegler. So yeah, let's just get into it. So first of all, when I think about the puppy interview or the kittens interview, whatever, I've noticed the notion, we know the word baby girl and how it's cemented now in our lingo and our culture, you could say, as Gen Z and as internet users. So I've noticed, we're on the hunt for baby girls. We're on the hunt for men that fit that term quite well. And the puppy interview specifically seems to be like a huge part in this. Like, it's where we really that's baby girl. There he is, you know what I mean? Like, you're so baby girl. That's where we typically use the term, and also for men in movies. I think Saltburn, and how Jacob Elordi was called baby girl or whatever. I don't know, you know what I mean? But that's the main place we find this term, and that's where it's I see a large amount of, namely women, kind of go to. That's where we want to see these men, we want to see that side of them come out in this interview. That's where we mainly get it, if I'm making sense. This isn't really scripted, I just wrote down a couple notes, so if it's not clear, that's why. A couple that I can think of is Andrew Garfield's one, Paul Mescal, Kit Connor. There are so many, honestly. And what I found interesting about the one with Kit Connor specifically, he just recently did with Rachel Zegler, who we will talk about soon, is the fact that in that interview he couldn't keep his focus. And this is a theme I'm seeing a lot with the men that go on the puppy interview, right? They obviously can't keep their focus because there's puppies running around and all of that. I imagine it's very overwhelming, and you can't focus. I've seen it even with women that do the interview. But I've noticed, maybe I'm making a big deal out of an observation that I've only seen once or twice, but I've noticed that when men are on there and they're there with female counterparts, they tend to lose track of the interview and not really answer the questions, or I don't know, while the female counterpart has to kind of take it on. Especially the one with Rachel Zegler and Kit Connor, you'll notice this dynamic that I'm trying to point out, where it's kind of okay, well, he's doing his thing, I guess I'll take over and answer the questions as well. It's not a bad thing. Listen, I'm just making an observation. I'm painting a picture, okay? See it, visualize it. So maybe it's nothing, maybe it's a part of something, but it's just a dynamic I've noticed, and it's kind of a leeway that's given to these men because it makes them even more endearing than them already playing with the puppies. It's almost like the women must keep remaining stoic. And that's the thing, when women do have interviews where they're playing with puppies and they're overwhelmed, it's just seen oh, okay, that's sweet that she's a nice person. But with the men, it's it takes a whole other form. It's baby girl supreme. I don't know. But I get it. I also love these interviews, and I love seeing the side of men, and I'll explain that with as this video goes on. Now, I just want to say, I feel like, I don't know what nuance I could add to this conversation and this observation. I think I'll need more time to sit with my thoughts, but I can say that there's obviously a phenomenon that we know of. If you're into, pop culture and you're into video essays, you've probably heard, I've seen and I've watched and I've read a lot about women's hate trains, like especially women in Hollywood or whatever. If they're successful, they just, especially, that's the thing, if women are seen as, lovable or quirky, or the way that we view these baby girl men, somewhere along their career, they're gonna get hated on. It's like, we know this now. It's there. There's so many video essays you could even watch about it, about like, Anne Hathaway, I think, Jennifer Lawrence. There'll always be just this hatred that comes out of nowhere. It's specifically reserved for women. Recently, we can think Chapo Roan. We can think the silly instances with Tyler and like award shows or whatever, the whole Apiti African thing. Like, it's just like, it's always gonna be there no matter what. It's a natural part of a successful woman's career. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. You can find out why by watching all these great video essays that I'll try find and put up. I bring it up because it's an important contrast. It's important information needed to make this contrast, right? Because it seems as though men with these qualities are rewarded in the long run, but women are not. You know how the people always say, while women are allowed to show their emotions, right, in society, like we know this, right? Women are allowed to be more emotional, right? Or women are more emotional than men. But the notion of women can show their emotions and men can't. What I'm starting to feel is that isn't true. Yes, I'm thinking of Love Island UK for some reason. There was this moment where this girl, I don't remember their names, but yes, I watched all Love Islands this year, but this girl in the UK one, she said something rude to this guy called Kieran. She was like throwing jabs his way, and then she was like, whatever, you're so embarrassing or whatever. And then Kieran threw jabs back at her, right? And she just started crying, right? So in that moment, most of the people that were there, the other contestants, comforted her or whatever, but there was still a great number that didn't. So, but I do think that in those moments, yes, women are afforded more grace or are allowed to, but see, that one's tricky for me, because it's like, not everyone was like, hey, you crying, let's all come and gather around you and make you feel better. There was still like people sat there that were like, well, if you're gonna dish it out, you should be able to take it back in. You should be able to take it. So I don't know how true that is. I think it depends on the context. But yes, I could see from a perspective where it's like, well, women do typically cry in situations and they're allowed to. But at the same time, I think that isn't true, because if we look at the recent, I don't even know what we'll call it, with Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, people are like mad that they cry a lot in interviews. People are mad they cry a lot in interviews. Kim, people are dying.
My diamond earring came off in the ocean and it's gone. And there's people that are dying.
You're caring about people crying in interviews. What does it have to do with you? Why not just not watch the interview? Why is this a problem, Kim? People are dying. I don't get it. This one really like confuses me. It like almost like, I'm like, what? Is this really something? And at first, I know how the internet works. I know that even though boomers will see something and be like, there's this trend taking over the internet, taking over every aspect of every Gen Zer, make sure you keep your kids locked in because they might do this activity. And it's like, it's not really trending, it's just trending on their pages. I hate when they lack that awareness, but I can tell when something really is like trending everywhere. versus when it's just something niche, because it will end up with me seeing it, right? I saw one thing talking about them crying in interviews, and then I saw a bunch. So I'm like, okay, this is definitely something that's been spoken about, because I'm not on TikTok, but I am on YouTube. So once I catch it on YouTube, that's when I'm like, okay, this is something that's been oh my gosh, that was a lot. That's when I'm like, okay, this is something being discussed. And in defense of them, I've seen like the most random things being said, like, oh, they're just theater kids. Trust me, I'm a theater kid. Hey, as a theater kid myself, I can say it has absolutely nothing to do with that. Hello, that's even weird. That's weird that we have to justify two women crying about a passion project or something they care about, or like the fact that we have to even conceptualize why they're crying is so stupid and so silly. It makes no sense. They're being vulnerable, they're being emotional, but they're not awarded baby girl title. I don't get it. And I don't know why theater kids have to be brought down all the time. Yes, do I fit into some theater kids stereotypes, like not doing math? Yeah, maybe I do. But crying in an interview and it being theater kid coded, I don't get it. Why are you bullying us? It's not theater. They just care about this project, and I think it's so sweet that they care about each other as well. I can imagine as an interviewer having people cry at your questions can make you feel good as well. I think particularly for me, I grew up watching Ariana Grande since she was on Nickelodeon. I watched her become this pop star and all of that. I really grew up, she's one of the few celebrities I really grew up watching my entire life. If you've watched her interviews growing up or whatever, you'll notice that anytime she cried, she immediately like cringed. Like she almost never cried in interviews, and when she did, she cringed at herself. Like she found it almost embarrassing, you know. So I find it interesting that let me say not interesting, as you know, a long time viewer, I wouldn't call myself a fan of anyone these days. That's dangerous. I feel like this is really monumentous that she can cry and be so vulnerable in interviews. This feels like a really positive thing that she can cry so openly, and just I love seeing a friendship where I haven't watched any of the interviews, to be honest, but seeing a friendship where you feel like you can cry with someone and bonding that much with someone when filming a project, I think that's beautiful. And it doesn't always happen. Like, just because actors are in one project doesn't mean that they're all friends and that they get along. And that's a weird other topic that I've noted that I want to speak about in future, is like, of any career field, why, like with actors, do we expect them to know each other? They're at work. That's the job. Most of the time, they probably don't even speak to each other on set as much as we would like to think they do. We kind of push this narrative onto them. But with that being said, now that we have two people that seem to actually have bonded in that way that we would want actors to, even though it's not required, now we have vitriol towards it. It's like, what do you want? I also just think, how miserable do you have to be to care about people crying and showing their emotions? How miserable do you have to be to care about this? Seriously. Like, why do you care? I don't care. I just care that you care. She has friends. They're friends. They care about each other. Let them be. Get over it. Another case study, I said there were only two. There's another case study I forgot. And that is Kaylor from Love Island US. Crazy how Love Island keeps popping up. She cried a lot on Love Island. I don't know, man. I found it weird that people couldn't help but point out how much she cried. And crying, I don't know why when you're a woman, crying is associated with being young and immature and naive. I hate that narrative. Maybe it is a maturity thing, maybe it isn't. Also, maybe you shouldn't care so much. I hated that. I hated the conversation of, look, girl, you cry too much. Like, you cry a lot. Who cares? Let her cry. She's not hurting you. That's what I don't get. Like, of all the awful things out there in the world right now where people are being harmed and people are being hurt, innocent lives being taken, this is what you choose to care about. There is no such thing as crying too much. Each person regulates differently. Would I cry? I personally would not cry on TV, but if she felt comfortable enough and vulnerable enough to cry, like vulnerability is such a underrated thing, like it's such a powerful thing to be able to let people see you in a state of such vulnerability. To let people see you being vulnerable it's such an empowering thing. There's so much strength to that. I hate how this sounds very like middle school. I just can't help but see the double standard in all of this, which is weird because it's irony actually, because there is the sentiment of like men can't show their emotions, but there's also something important that we need to note, that men do show their emotions a lot, okay? I.e. war, very emotional men there, I'd say. I'd say the entire concept of war is just immature and emotional men. Men do show their emotions very much so, if not more than women, I'd argue. I think about sports culture with men, and when was it? There was that soccer thing. Oh my gosh, I don't know sports that well. There's that soccer thing with Neymar, remember, and everyone. Guys, I don't know sports. I do play sports, but I just don't know them. But there was that whole thing where, no, I don't know sports. There was something soccer related that happened in England, I think, or something like that. And one of the teams somewhere in the world, I think England, lost, and they trashed the entire place. Like that day. And also sometimes there's a rise in GBV during that type of situation. I wrote here streamers and gamer culture, particularly the men. I think men use emotion for legislation, I wrote here as well. Example, Roe v. Wade. At some point it stops being about religion and about the Bible, and people start taking things and interpreting them how it fits them, so that their own emotions are masked behind the Bible, because the Bible says this. And it's like, if you read the Bible closely, it says none of that. They're just using their own narratives and their own ideas and what they want and what their emotions tell them, and they perpetuate that on everyone else. So that's what I kind of mean by they use legislation. You can see it in legislation, laws, and things like that. So yeah, that's just a few examples of like men definitely do show their emotions a lot, especially anger. That one is allowed the most. I find it not shocking. Yeah, that's kind of how the society works. Now, I kept asking myself, so why are emotions rewarded for men in this context, right? Why are they rewarded for being like baby girls and being soft? Why is that a good thing? But women aren't afforded that same grace. My theory, right, and I think this is the obvious theory, honestly, it's the softness x masculinity thing, right? It's progressive in that sense. Now I'm gonna try get this worded better, but I think because men, throughout history have been macho and have been this hyper masculinity, especially right now, if you think about the context of the world right now, if you think about the type of men in power right now, your Andrew Tates, this toxic masculinity that's being promoted right now, which is very dangerous, not only to women, but the men themselves. The patriarchy doesn't just harm, I said the P word, the patriarchy doesn't just harm men, it doesn't just harm women, it also harms men. But I think because of this context of hypermasculinity and toxic masculinity being everywhere and being, I think when you see these men playing with puppies, it feels progressive. It feels like a fresh of breath air. It feels like a breath of fresh air. It's just nice to see men being soft when the stereotype for them is just being, oh, no feelings, comforting. And it's easy to, I think it's also easy to kind of like reading a Wattpad fan fiction and you're the YA. I feel like that's what these interviews can be for women, which are the larger audience of like YA, right? It feels like a place where we can kind of envision ourselves with these men. It's like a nice feeling to um put yourself with that man and be like, he's so soft and he loves me and he's kind and he look how he treats puppies. And and we see this with the Andrew Garfield the interview that he did with Amelia. It's nice. I don't know, it's just nice to, even though they might have absolutely nothing going on between them, obviously, it feels nice to just kind of watch and be like, oh, but what if? Feels like we had a sleepover and we kikiing about this. And I think that's what this kind of plays into as well. Okay, when I tell you I just cleared my entire setup because I was like, okay, I'm done filming. When I literally forgot the third case study, why did you not remind me? I'm forgetful. I forgot to mention Rachel Zegler, who is probably the person that inspired this entire video, because I noticed how with her, especially her personality, from what we see, what we can assume, she seems very lovely and very like bubbly and all of that. But when it comes to her case is so weird. I don't even know, like the hatred she received at some point, I don't get it. Recently I watched her Broadway performance. There's the song Gimme Something, I don't know. She is so freaking talented, and I don't know if everyone knows that, and I'm late to knowing that, but her voice, like, she is talented, and I don't understand the hatred she receives, genuinely. Because here's the thing with some people, even though I don't think Chappell Roan's criticisms were valid by any means, I think people are just trying to find things to be mad about. I think it makes more sense because she's outwardly spoken about things. She is saying it with her chest, you know what I mean? But Rachel Zegler, from what I have seen of hers, which is very few, I haven't picked up on her saying anything like outrageous, anything that would warrant people having some sort of like opinion or criticisms towards her. There's no reason. I don't understand. It's just like her personality, I guess, from what we can make of it, annoys people. And that's why I'm like, men literally are golden retrievers when they have the exact personality she has. Like, if a man is coming out like that, it's like, oh, baby girl, he's so baby girl, he's a golden retriever, especially that. But when a woman comes with that personality, it's annoying. Which I like, do you see the double standard? I don't get it. Maybe I'm using that word wrong and I don't know what it means. But if it means what I think it means, then yeah, this is a double standard. By the time she was having to deal with that hate, I wasn't on TikTok, so maybe I'm missing parts of this, but I don't know why she was hated on. There's no valid reason. She is so talented. She's doing the job. That's all we deserve really from celebrities. All we need from them is for them to do their jobs. Anything beyond that is just too much, doing too much. She's another weird case. I think the hate has definitely died down a lot, but yeah, she definitely had a taste of it, and it wasn't for no reason. It just felt like another Jennifer Lawrence. Was funny when she was falling down the stairs, but after a couple times you get sick of her type of thing. I don't get it. I don't get this phenomenon. I know it's there. I understand why it's there, but it still doesn't make sense, even with all the facts. It's just stupid. I wish people were more critical in their thinking. Like, I wish people really sat with themselves, did some reflection, and wondered, is this worthy of caring about? 9 times out of 10 will probably be no. Just to close this off, I would like to say that this has all been theoretical. Not even theoretical. Theory still has research backing it up, and I don't have research. So take it how you'll take it. This is just me, once again. The argument about why women are hated and aren't awarded the same advances has been had. I'm just merely trying to paint another aspect of that I feel like maybe we aren't speaking enough about, and maybe someone else will do the research for it. That's my theory. I would love to hear some opinions on, not all, just some opinions on why this is happening, because I've just kind of put out a bunch of statements and questions waiting to be answered. I am no scholar, okay? I let someone else do that. But yeah, anyways, that is just my think piece, we'll call it that. And I hope you find it insightful, and if not insightful, I hope you find it I hope you find it.